following strange story unfolded in the autumn of 2002 when a couple from Anfield, Kevin and Jenny, bought what they regarded as their dream house in North Liverpool. The house in question is Victorian and has 5 bedrooms, and as soon as the estate agent showed the couple the premises and its garden, Kevin and Jenny instantly fell in love with it. The couple's 2 young children, Alfie and Kelly, also loved the house, and when all the paperwork was done and the family moved in, the children enjoyed playing in the garden, which has a very quiet and almost sleepy atmosphere about it. An elderly neighbour walking his dog chatted to the couple, and he said something that made them feel a bit uneasy. He said, "It's a lovely place by day, but it just seems to change overnight." Jenny asked the neighbour what he meant, and the old man seemed to realise that he'd said something he shouldn't have said and started to backpedal. He came back with a rather lame reply. "Nah, it's just imagination, love. A lot of places have a different feel of a night, don't they? That's all I meant, like." That very evening an October chill descended on the house, and Kevin proudly put coal in the grate of the cast-iron fireplace in the living room as his children watched. He loved open fires, and the children helped him twist newspapers into tapers, which they inserted between the nuggets of coal, and in no time a fire was kindled and the family gathered round the rosy flames that autumn night. Kevin told the children stories, and he said that the little blue flames that popped up in the fire every now and then were fairies. And Kelly, who was only 5, loved the tales, and 7-year-old Alfie gleefully reminded his dad that Halloween was only a few weeks away. And Kevin imagined the atmospheric ghost stories he could tell on Duckapple night in front of the quaint open fire, and he smiled as he patted Kelly's head. About 8:30 that evening, Jenny took Kelly up to the bathroom and supervised her as she brushed her teeth before bedtime. As Kelly rinsed her mouth over the wash basin, she and her mum were startled by excited cries that came from downstairs. Those cries belonged to Alfie. The boy ran up the stairs to his father, who was painting a spare room, and he said, "Dad, there's a face in the fire. Come and look." "Hang on, Alfie," said the boy's father with impatience, and he reluctantly went downstairs, where Kevin met Jenny and little Kelly on the landing, and to Jenny, Alfie said, "Mum, there's a boy's face in the fire." And so she went downstairs with Alfie's little sister and the sceptical Kevin, and all 4 of them went to the living room. As they reached the living room doorway, Jenny said to her husband, "You'll have to stop telling them these stories, Kevin," because she thought her son was just seeing things because of the so-called fairy stories. But Kevin, Jenny and Kelly all stood in the doorway of the living room in shock. As clear as a photograph, there was an image of a boy of about 10 years of age visible in the glowing embers of the coal, and he looked as if he was crying. "Jesus," Jenny said, and she grabbed Kevin's arm and she said, "Oh, Kevin, what is it?" Kevin made it a point never to swear in front of his children, but on this occasion he swore with nerves, and then he said to his son, "Come here, Alfie," because his son was walking towards the apparition as if he was mesmerised by the spectral spectacle. The apparition of the child in the fireplace shimmered, and it started to wring its hands as if it was pleading for something, help perhaps. And then a faint high-pitched scream could be heard, and suddenly the image vanished. At that precise instant, the plasma TV in the corner, which had been muted earlier, let out a deafening blast of sound as if something mischievous had pressed the mute off button on the telly's remote control. Now that evening, Alfie and Kelly were allowed to sleep with their mum and dad because they had been so scared by the appearance of the boy in the fire. But things were to get much worse. A few days later, Kelly said a naughty old man had sat on her bed and slapped her arm and leg. The child said she had watched him come out of the carpet, and when she had started crying, he'd called her a little scut. The child had obviously never heard of this word before, and Kevin did a little research and he discovered it was an old Victorian swear word. A scut is the tail of a hare, but it was also used derogatorily towards certain people. It was a sort of 4-letter word of the Victorian days. Kelly was asked to sketch the man from the carpet, and she drew him as a tall, skinny, bald man with tufts of long grey straggly hair on each side of his head. He had warned the child that if she told anyone where he came from, he'd come for her in the night and take her into the carpet.
"He said I'd never see my mummy and daddy again,"
Kelly told her mother, and then embraced her as she sobbed her eyes out. Kevin didn't know what to make of this story. He had found an old carpet in the attic, and Jenny had suggested getting it cleaned professionally because it had a beautiful pattern on it. It had been laid out in Kelly's bedroom. Alfie said he had heard a stranger talking to Kelly in her room on the night of the alleged ghostly visitation, but his parents weren't sure if the whole thing was all just down to Kelly having a nightmare and her brother adding fanciful bits to it. The carpet was removed from the child's room because it continued to upset Kelly, and it was laid down in the parents' room by Kevin. Weeks went by, but one morning around 3 a.m, Jenny awoke and she turned right in her bed because Kevin was snoring in her face. Moonlight was pouring through the window onto the bedroom floor, onto the old carpet. Jenny idly gazed at the pattern, ready to go back to sleep, when she saw lumps raise up in it. At first she thought it was mice under the carpet because the lumps moved slightly, but she realised with horror that a face was forming in the carpet, and she froze with fear. In one swift movement, an ash-grey figure appeared on the carpet of a man with a bald head, hair at the sides of that head, a long hooked nose, and in the moonlight Jenny could see every detail of the ghost. She could see his waistcoat and the chain of his fob watch, his long coat, narrow trousers and boots. And by now Jenny's hand was moving steadily under the covers towards her husband's arm, and she shook him and she even pinched him as he snored at full pelt. The ghost got up off the carpet and chillingly bent over to look at Jenny with his head tilted. Jenny closed her eyes and she heard the slight breathing close to her left ear. Then she heard footsteps padding across the room. Jenny shook Kevin with so much violence she knocked her husband's head against the headboard of the bed. She told him what had just happened, but Kevin mumbled, "It's been a dream." And he turned over and he was going to go back to sleep. This time there were screams from Alfie's room. Jenny bravely flew from her bed and she went to her son's room. Alfie was under the blankets crying. Jenny pulled the blankets away and she asked him what the matter was, and Alfie said,
"He tried to strangle me, Mum."
And he pointed at something Jenny could plainly see out the corner of her right eye. A tall figure was hiding on the other side of the wardrobe to her right, but she was too scared to turn her head to face the weird ghost. Jenny picked up her son and he screamed hysterically, and she took him out of the room to her own bedroom. She called her husband every name under the sun because he said she had dreamed about the figure coming out of the carpet. On the following morning, Jenny had a strange impulse to hang the accursed carpet on the washing line in the garden, and she beat it with a cricket bat. Dust came off it, and she and Kevin heard weird faint screams which seemed to come from the carpet. Afterwards, Jenny doused the carpet in firelighter fluid and then she burnt it in the back garden. And since then, there have been no further paranormal incidents at the house.